and welcome everybody to our session, the Inside Look at KPTV News. I'm Marvin Marcelo, the scholarly associate professor in the Murrow College. I've been here a long time, so and it's been a long day. I mean, it's half a day already, so that's why. Welcome everybody to our session. Oh, do I need to turn that down? I'm echoing for some reason. Anyway, we have a great cast of people here from inside KPTV, and I want to welcome them. And I'll first start with Brenna Kelly.
Hi, everyone. I am an MMJ at KPTV. I've been here almost 4 years now. I also work with photographers sometimes and fill an anchor. I graduated from WSU in 2015. My first job out of college was in Bangor, Maine. You guys probably don't even know where that is on a map. I really didn't. Some people think Maine's not even in this country. Market 156. I wanted to experience life over in the Northeast. It was a crazy 2 years filled with weird stories and below zero weather. I didn't know anything about it. I'm from Southern California, so that was a shock. But it was awesome. As you've heard a lot of other panelists say, going to your first small market is an invaluable experience. So how I got my job in Portland was I pretty much blind door knocked. I asked for meetings at all 4 stations, and I was hired. So that is my little intro.
Thanks, Brenna. And now we'll move over to Claire Martin-Tellis.
Yes. Hi, I am a graduate from 2019, so pretty new to the TV world. I was just in your shoes a couple of years ago. I'm really happy to be back at Symposium. This is my first job out of college, actually, at KPTV. So I've been here since I graduated. I'm pretty sure Marvin got me my job. So it's been a great experience. I'm an assignment editor, so I work really closely with our crews in the field as well as producers, in-house, story ideas, research, lots of information, organizing all of that for the newsroom. So it's been great.
Great, thank you, Claire. And now to Nick Krupke.
Nope.
Nick's muted.
See, when you're a class of 2004, you forget to unmute. Marvin helped me get my first job too back in 2004. I'm from Mount Vernon, Washington, and I loved my time there. I really featured I did a lot of radio at KUGR, and then the last year I did a lot of Cable 8, I forget what it's called, sports show on Cable 8, and then obviously the news. And from there, Marvin helped me get a little gig at the NAI World Series with KLEW in Lewiston. And from there, I got a job in Billings, Montana, and then in Eugene. I was there for about 8 years, and now I've been in Portland for about 8 years. And it's really cool to see so many Cougs. We don't see each other in the newsroom anymore because half of us aren't there. But it is fun to get together and throw a few back and talk about the good old days. I wish we were there in person. Yeah, I do sports. And so obviously this year has been completely different than what it normally is. And it's been a lot of this, talking to a computer screen, but we've made it work out. So go Cougs.
Great, go Cougs. Thanks, Nick Krupke. Next is Brian McMillan.
Hey guys, I'm Brian McMillan, and I started my news career after graduating in Nick's class, 2004. I started in Bend, Oregon. That's market 192. So it's about as small as you can possibly get down there in Little Bend, but it was beautiful. It was a great experience. I was there for 2 years, and then I feel like I got really lucky, got here to Portland, and I've been here ever since, about 12 years now here in Portland. And I actually, when I got my first job in Bend, I wanted a sports job, but they didn't have one. They said, "Oh, well, can you do the weather?" And I just said, "Yes, I can." I did it a few times for Cable 8, and then I figured I probably should know something about the weather. So I went back to school online and got a meteorology degree too. But been doing that here at KPTV along with some news reporting too. So I do about 60 to 70% weather and the rest news reporting. And so it makes my week go by really fast because I get to do a little bit of both.
Great, thanks, Brian. And now to Joe Vithayathil.
Marvin, you pronounced the last name correctly. Bravo to you. I don't know if you practiced that or not.
I practiced all night.
Good man. All right.
Well, thank you very much. So I am a graduate of 1999. So Claire, 20 years before you graduated.
Oh my God.
Walking out of the halls of Murrow. I mean, Marvin feel old too, I'm sure. Yeah, 20 years ago. So I started in Yakima, Washington, one-man band, kind of general assignment reporter. And I always enjoyed feature reporting. Actually, kind of like BMAC, Brian, I thought about being a sports guy. And then I met the sports guy in Yakima, Washington, and said, let me try something else. I don't feel like working weekends for the rest of my life. So I became a feature reporter. And so I moved to San Antonio, Texas, Fox affiliate there, where I was a feature reporter for several years. And then was fortunate enough to get a job back up here in the Northwest, which was always the goal. And so I've now been with Fox 12 for 15 years. I'm on the morning show, Good Day Oregon, do a daily feature called On the Go with Joe. Work on a couple other franchises, and then they let me fill in various other things. Today I did traffic and I anchored our lifestyle show. So they let me do a little bit of everything, but it's a fun gig and they haven't kicked me out yet.
Great, thanks, Joe. And now, and to our most youngest member, Jeff Robertson.
Right, yeah, hey guys. Yeah, I actually beat Joe by 1 year as the oldest alum on this panel here. I graduated in 1998. My advisor was actually Glenn Johnson. Some of you guys might remember him, voice of the Cougs and a well-loved member of the college. But I actually, unlike other people in the industry, I did not have to jump from market to market. I actually got to come back to my hometown. I grew up in Vancouver, just across the river here from Portland, and got to come back here as a sports intern right out of graduating from WSU. Thought I was going to be on air at the time. And then I decided they had a job opening at K2, which is where I started here in Portland, and started out behind the scenes and ended up loving that so much that that's where I've been ever since, and went over to Fox in 2000 and have been here for the last 21 years or so. So it's been great.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Okay, so most of the day, yesterday and today, we've been hearing a lot of people about getting in their first gig in television news and all that. So today I want to just kind of focus on your everyday job. And I know some of the jobs that people first think about may have it wrong in the sense of this is what a reporter does, this is what a producer does, this is what sports people do. So I'm going to go to a job that a lot of people haven't heard of or may have some fear of, and that's Claire Martin's job as an assignment editor. So Claire, can you tell us a little bit about your day and what it's like to be an assignment editor?
Yeah, I also had no idea what an assignment editor was. When I got the job, I was like, what am I doing? I don't know. So they definitely trained me. I had no experience in that specifically, but it's a lot of multitasking. You come in, you do sort of live shot sheets. So basically telling the producers what reporters they have for the day for their shows. Do that for the early shows. We have a 4, 5, and 6 o'clock newscast. I also do email, so I'm pulling press releases, organizing all that information so we can have it in our newscasts as well. I'm coordinating with CNN and Fox National to see if they have any stories we want to run, or if they want some of our stories to run. What else? The editorial meeting, we work with the managers and reporters to figure out what we want to cover for the day. We assign their reporters. Sometimes we help them with like background information or any lookups they might need to aid them in telling their story for the night. And yeah, just working really closely with reporters, anything they need help with, and helping the producers for content for their show as well. And for breaking news, we're really the hub of the newsroom of information. So talking with local authorities, figuring out what's going on, if we need to be there, you know, and moving crews, moving photographers, all that sort of organization and coordination.
So basically you get the boss people around, Claire, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
That's good. The youngest member of the group can be the biggest boss. So that's, you know, that's a thing to aspire to. Speaking of the big boss, Jeff Robertson, as managing editor, I just remembered I said this to you earlier that my managing editor had cigarettes hanging out of his mouth. So tell us a little bit about your job and why cigarettes are such an important thing.
Well, not quite as important as they used to be years ago when I first got into the business, but I can vouch for that. That did happen back then. I actually did get my start at the assignment desk as well, so I'm well versed in what Claire was referring to. We sort of call the assignment desk the nerve center of the newsroom. It's where all of the incoming information comes in, and then, as Claire mentioned, it's the assignment desk's job to then get that information out to everyone else, including the reporters, the field crews, and the producers. I worked my way up. Basically, I was on the desk for almost 18 years or so. Been the managing editor now for about 2 of those years. Enjoy every minute of it. I see in the chat here asking how things have changed since we got started in the business. And COVID has obviously changed it a ton. Everything's basically virtual now. But as Nick mentioned earlier, it's great to be able to still get together with people when we can. But from the managerial standpoint of things, we have a great team of people. We all work really well together. And I think that's the biggest part of being in a newsroom is the team building aspect of it. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to put on a quality product with your newscast every day.
So there are a lot of challenges, Jeff, and I know this might be something for Brenna to talk about. You are one of the few hard news reporters that are out there on a daily basis. What is it like trying to do your job from your house and maybe really not going out there in person?
Yeah, my boss in the beginning of the pandemic had me be the guinea pig for maybe like a month where I reported from home all day and went live from home. And I go live with this. I think, years ago, just even a few years ago, it might not have been possible, or we might not have envisioned that it would have looked good on air. It looks good enough. It sounds, decent. And I think we are able to connect with viewers a lot more. So I start my day at home, as do other reporters, instead of meeting for our first editorial meeting of the day in the newsroom. We get assigned stories and we start reaching out. So that's sitting at, my kitchen table and emailing the people I need to talk to, making calls. If I have an interview, more in the thick of the pandemic, I would do it from Zoom. Now it's about like half and half. We see what works. We see what our story subjects are comfortable with. Sometimes they're not comfortable meeting in person, so we'll do it over Zoom, and that's fine. And sometimes they are, and we'll meet them in hopefully a well-ventilated area with masks. And that's, become the norm. And we also have a new policy where we wear masks on air. So that's just kind of how it works. I think working from home can sometimes get depressing, but there's also a ton of benefits because there's a little bit more you can do from home and just from your laptop, staying in one place. I'm not driving if I'm working from home all day. So I have the ability to be on my computer more. I edit from home. As you know, I'm an MMJ. So if I am working as a one-man band that day, I might never leave my kitchen table. And, sometimes it's so busy that I might not even have a chance to eat. And that is something that I'm sure you've heard from other people. Breaks don't always happen day to day, but my day looks a lot different. And I'm hoping pieces of it start to come back in person because the connections you make with people in person are really invaluable and what make a story a lot of the time.
Great, thanks, Brenna. Speaking of eating, Nick, the press food table is not the same any longer, right? I mean, I remember walking into a Coliseum and the press, we would be in a room and then all of a sudden there'd be food for us, which didn't look really like very much food at all. How's doing your job from home and not being out in the field?
That's actually changed a lot with the Blazers coming back. They allow us in. We get a boxed like lunch for dinner if you want it, a sandwich and a cookie and a bag of Lay's chips if you want it. But even that, you're sitting at a table by yourself. You can't mingle with anybody else. That was always one of the great things before a game. You could chat it up with the different writers or people with the team, the PR guys or the photographer, whatever. There's that connection of just being in the industry, and that's no longer there. But the first few months, it was a lot of working from home, and it was a lot of this kind of stuff, which really made for telling like visual storytelling in sports, which is a lot of it was non-existent there for a few months. But we've gone back now, and with Timbers back in, and we were allowed to go to some Duck and Beaver games and things like that without fans, of course. But it's completely different. That will come back. I just feel like kind of what Brenna said, like being able to work from home and not having to drive to Salem or to Vancouver or to Eugene to go do an interview. I can do it here on the computer. I feel like I'm pushing out more content than I ever have before. So I almost feel like I'm working more, but I'm more productive, you know? I mean, instead of sitting in the car and wasting time, it's just kind of turned to that. So it's been different. And yeah, I still feel like I'm got the COVID-19 on me, even though I don't have any press box cookies to wolf down anymore, for sure.
Great. Thanks, Nick. And Joe, being a feature reporter, you get to kind of, I know you don't always get to pick what you want to be on the air, but you seem to have a more wide range of subjects to do. How's it going for you?
Yeah, you know, I'm definitely an odd bird. Whereas, you know, someone like Brenna it's a little bit more news of the day. You may not come into work and knowing what you're going to do today. Because I'm on a morning show, I set my segments up generally at least a week, sometimes 2-3 weeks in advance. So the workflow is very, very different. Typical day for me is I come in, you know, I get in about 4 o'clock. Sometimes I'm live. I've started, you know, initially when COVID hit, of course, I wasn't going out live in the field anymore. I'm doing more of that now. Or sometimes it would be packages, whatever it is, I'd be, you know, kind of doing live hits through the show until about 9 a.m. Then I go back to the station and I'm emailing people, calling people, setting things up. And yeah, I've got a pretty wide latitude in terms of what I'm allowed to cover, kind of what falls under the umbrella of my feature segments. So really, the work part of what I do is setting up the various stories, because if you just were to watch my segments, I'm at a brewery one day, I'm at a restaurant the next. Don't tell my bosses, but I do that part for free. The work part is that I've got to set all this
you
stuff.
heard that.
Yeah. I've got to set all this stuff up. So, you know, a crazy day might be, you know, I might get a phone call at like 5 p.m. saying, hey, my kid got sick. I can't be there tomorrow morning. So now I've got to scramble to find a new segment for the following morning at 6 a.m. So there's definitely a lot of work involved. It's just you don't really see it. If you were just going off what you saw on TV, it's like this guy just messes around all day. And I only mess around part of the day. So.
Thanks, Joe. There's another guy who does some work on the air every day, and sometimes he's wrong about what he says. Brian, what do you have to say about that as a brother?
I don't know what you're talking about, Marvin. I'm never wrong. Yeah, you know, us meteorologists, we get a bad rap for it's like the big joke, right? What is it? If any other job was wrong half the time, they'd be fired or something like that. But we are not wrong that often. I would say, you know, we miss maybe 5 to 10, maybe 5% of the time. I would say that. But people remember that 5% more than they remember the other 95% because it impacts their life. We actually, you know, my day is I come in at 10:30 in the morning. I have one of the better weather schedules because I work a dayside shift. Come in at 10:30, get ready for the noon show, make sure the forecast is still accurate. And then we do that, do the noon show. And then if I'm doing weather that day for the whole day, I'll do the main forecast, which we do every afternoon, and then get ready for the 4, 5, and 6 o'clock newscast. We have a lot of newscasts. So that's like the biggest gap in the day where we don't have a newscast is between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in there. And that's when we do our main forecast for the day. If I'm, yeah, as far as, you know, being wrong, which it happens in the weather, right? We're predicting the future. So if we are wrong, what we try to do is explain why, and we really try and own it. I think that's the difference between a good meteorologist and maybe a not so good meteorologist, is that as long as you can explain why you're not sure about something that's going to happen, or why, you know, something happened differently than what you'd expected, people will forgive you unless it ruined their wedding.
Well, you know, I can relate to that. So thanks, Brian. Brenna, there's a question in the chat that is made one way, but I want to kind of turn it a little bit. The industry has changed a lot. And I also know that it's pretty tough to go out there as an MMJ by yourself. But I know you covered some pretty heavy stuff with the Black Lives Matter protests and things like that. How did you handle yourself knowing that you're in a pretty, you know, lively spot?
Volatile situations. Yeah. It was hectic in the beginning of the pandemic. You know, first we had anxiety about getting sick and getting each other sick and our family sick. And then it turned into having anxiety about getting hurt out on assignment, because we are one of the most, if not the most, in the country, most politically active cities, Portland. And we saw protests night after night, and I'm sure you saw on national news it making headlines. 100 days, you know, we surpassed that, and there's a couple nights here and there where we don't see action, but they've picked back up again, and a lot of people don't know that. And being in those situations in the very moment, you're in work mode. I know it kind of seems scary to turn on the TV and see what we're in, but we are very much trained, and I didn't have prior training to this, of course, but you learn how to be hard and how to have an exterior as a journalist. I remember in college, professors saying that you got to have a thick skin, and more than just viewers telling you they don't like you, you have to have a thick skin and a hard exterior in the field. So dealing with you know, volatile situations where, you know, people have guns on them and you can see them, or there are flashbangs going off. And, you know, Brian was in the mix in these too, out in the field. We have security with us. We take those precautions, and you kind of just have to gear up and get your mind ready. And there's nothing really I could tell you to prepare for situations like that. But it is sort of a privilege in many ways to have a front row seat to those situations and see firsthand what's going on, even if people don't appreciate or believe our reporting. But we are always telling people firsthand what is happening right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, and what you don't see usually behind us too, I cover the riots in May here, which were really, really bad. And what you don't see is all the stuff that's not going on TV. There's a lot happening around you too. So it is kind of a sensory overload. And after you go through something like that, like a night of riots or a night of really intense protests or something like that, you do always have to take care of yourself. And that is something I think that's coming more to the foreground here, and that we as journalists and just people that work in news stations are talking about a lot more. Our station has been really great about mental health type stuff, because some of this is really intense, and if you're not used to it, or even if you are used to it, some things and some nights and some work shifts will catch you off guard a little bit. And so that has been nice to know that kind of is coming more into the foreground, the whole mental health aspect of journalism.
Yeah, and I will just say mental health is something we're talking about more than ever, and have, you know, that open door to our managers to talk about mental health. I doubt any of you ever thought you'd be talking to your managers about, I need a mental health day. But it's happening now, and I think we are in a different spot than we were a year and a half ago, and we have to have those conversations, and do not feel like guilty about your feelings or a certain type of way, because every single one of us on staff that has either been at protests or just in the mix of COVID or in dangerous situations are having those thoughts. And a lot of us talk to therapists, and that's completely okay. And I want you to know that.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Claire, how did you prioritize reporters' assignments as this went on in Portland? I mean, it's such a big deal nationwide.
Prioritize like different assignments, or?
Yeah, different assignments, and who would you send, you know, the live trucks out to, or not trucks, sorry, that's old school. And right away, Jeff goes, yeah, satellite truck. But you know, how would you assign your reporters, and how would you take the priority of who goes where, and how did you do that?
I think a lot of times in breaking news situations, it depends on where you are geographically. Like if something is happening really big right now, I need the closest person to go so you can get there quickest, and we can get content quicker and get it on air faster. And it's not, you know, it's not always about being first, but it is about, you know, being there so you can get the information and show people as quickly as possible. So someone that's closest for sure, and understanding why we need to cover something, how big it is. Like with the riots, everybody went. You know, it wasn't like you stay on your story that you've been working on for the day and I'll just send this person. Like we sent everybody because we knew it was a really big deal. So just, I guess, understanding your market and what this means to your community so you can act accordingly.
Jeff, as managing editor, I don't know if you need to have a balance between what Fox News would say nationally versus what Fox News station would say in Portland. How did you balance that as managing editor?
Yeah, so we have to go through that on a regular basis. Marvin, we actually get calls from viewers and emails all the time thinking that we and Fox News Channel are one and the same. That obviously is not the case. We are a local media affiliate. We just happen to have the Fox branding because we put their programming on the air. So we have to battle that on a daily basis. But basically, one of the big things that we're pushing for now, especially with so many different big stories happening, whether it's wildfires from last year, COVID, the ice storm that we had just a few weeks ago, et cetera, and the protests, we're balancing that now with trying to be more of a community advocate for our viewers. So going back to the prioritizing of our stories, a lot of that goes into how can we best advocate for the viewer and provide that information to them. So that's a big part of the way we pick our stories each day, is what is best going to convey the message to our viewers and get them the information that they need as far as like where they can go for vaccinations, what they can do to learn more about testing, who's eligible for a vaccination, whether you're a homebound senior, so all of those things come into play for deciding what a reporter covers every day. But it's more about the community advocacy versus we're still big on breaking news. That's still a priority for us, but we are gearing more towards being a community advocate for our viewers as well.
Marvin, can I hop in here? Because I want to.
Oh, yeah. Jeff.
You brought up something about Fox News and us. And to piggyback on what Jeff said, in all the years that I've been here, of course, so many people get us confused with the Fox News channel. For some people, that's a good thing. For some people, that's a bad thing. For a lot of people in Portland, quite honestly, if you know the political situation here, that's a bad thing. Several years ago, there was a rather big story, and there was I won't get into the specifics of it, but there's one guy, he was we needed this interview with the guy. And so one of our crews, I got a call saying, hey, he turned away our reporter because he came up and he said, I'm with Fox 12. And he said, I'm not talking to Fox. He's like, no, we're with the local Fox 12 Oregon. Slammed the door in his face. So then I went there, took off our mic flag, didn't have anything with Fox 12 Oregon on, knock on the door. Hi, I'm Joe with KPTV. Oh, come on in. Yeah, what can I do for you? And granted us the interview. So it's interesting how those three little letters can alter some people's perspective of who we are and what we do.
And Nick, I suppose that doesn't make any difference in the sports world for you in one way or the other. But you've had to develop relationships with people in order to get those interviews. And sometimes you're interviewing a coach that just says, that Krupke, he always asks me the hard questions. I'm not going to call on him. How do you deal with that?
And that's been different. And, with not having scrum interviews or being in a press conference live, we're waiting on a moderator there, usually one of the PR guys, you can have your hand raised. And then it's kind of hard to navigate that because the moment passes with something you would ask, and it's really hard to do a follow-up too, because by the time you're ready to get the follow-up, they're like, and next we have Joe Blow from Channel 2, and you're like, I didn't. That's been different. It's been, for sports-wise, it's a lot of developing, like you say, developing contacts and developing your own story ideas. Certainly when they weren't playing games, that came into big play, being able to have content and we were all trying to save our jobs, right? And so I feel like I kind of went into hyperdrive on pushing the amount of content without games to be played and being able to stay relevant in the news when so much stuff was heavy, and I kind of had to keep a little bit of the heaviness a little bit too. It couldn't be as fun and goofy as sports usually can be. So it's forced me this year to really, I don't know what the word would be, but maybe have more of a news tinge to it before than I thought. I mean, I don't want anything to do with news. You remember that from when I was there. I wanted to just stay in the fun land. So this year certainly taught me that I need to be a little more open to the broader audience as well.
Great. Brian, many of the viewers and students, they don't know, sometimes they don't know all about what your position does, and they kind of ask me questions about, well, how did so-and-so get into that? What did they do? And, the other Nick Allard up there in Seattle, always says, well, I don't know how Brian and I got there. And, and I know you gave us a little glimpse of, well, I started here and there, but, so many of us who are just viewers actually we want to hear the score, and then we want to know what the weather's like. And if there's a big fire somewhere, then just tell us. So tell us about your kind of direction for weather and how you see its relevance in today's society.
We've had a lot of consultants come in, and everyone says that weather is one of the most important parts of a newscast. At least that's what we're told, and that actually that's true. Everybody wants to know what the weather is going to be. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to want to know what the weather's going to be like. I do think that a lot of people have these, right? And that will eventually, someday, maybe, be accurate enough to where maybe we're not needed as much. But I think there's always there's always going to be an importance around the weather story, because every weathercast has a story that you're telling. And right now, the phones and like your iPhone app, for instance, the weather iPhone app, it goes off of just a one model, okay? And that is just one model worth of information. It's not going with any type of experience that we have, patterns that we've seen before that might set up for stuff like that. In some areas of the country, it actually works out pretty well. But here in Portland and in Seattle and even out in Pullman, you may have noticed that the iPhone app isn't terribly reliable, and it's because the human element is not a part of that. So I do see, I see maybe us doing a lot more stuff on the web. We're doing a ton right now on the web, and that's a major part of our job right now. I think we do webcasts maybe 4 times a day. We do stuff for Alexa. We do stuff. I mean, it's incredible the amount we do. We do Instagram stories and Facebook live stuff, especially when a weather system is coming in. It's a huge part of our job nowadays, and it's only going to get bigger. So I would say to everybody, make sure you know how to do all of that stuff and be versatile. And if somebody asks you to, if you're working in a small market and somebody asks you to try something, maybe that Joe didn't do. If they ask you to try something different, maybe you're not into sports, but they need you to help out with sports one night. Do that and try and be as versatile as possible, and that'll keep you more valuable to a station and will help you advance as well.
Jeff, when do your reporters pitch you stories, or do they pitch the producers? And if they do, how do you decide what story's best? I mean, I'm sure Brenna has all the best stories, but you've turned her down every single day.
All the time.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. So we actually have 2 editorial meetings every day, and now we used to all get together in the newsroom for them, but obviously now they're all online. But everybody pitches their stories to the entire group. It involves the producers, the assignment desk, managers, and the editor and the reporters. And they have their reporter pitches. And a lot of the time we do try to go with those because, well, they are the best most of the time, I will have to say, right, Brenna?
I hope so.
But as in addition to that, we do have our daily queue, stories that have come in from viewer suggestions, press releases, PIO tips, you name it. And we just go through that list after doing the story ideas. And a lot of the time we do go with the ones that the reporters pitch because they are the ones that are, vested in those topics. They have inroads on the sources for them. So they're usually the ones that are best apt to know whether it's a good story to pursue. So a lot of the time we do go with the reporter stories. I do say that we probably shot the reporters down more pre-COVID than we do nowadays. With the online meetings that we have, a lot of the times it's the reporter pitches that get chosen for the packages each day.
I have to jump in here. Do you guys still use iNews in Murrow?
Well, we did up till maybe a couple of weeks ago when we started using, I can't remember, Rundown Creator or something like that, some online thing because our computers are getting old.
Okay, I just wanted to say we do use iNews, and I didn't know this in Murrow, but Jeff keeps a totally type A, amazing like list of the day's stories, and you can go in the future, you can go in the past and look what we've done, and it's incredible. In my first market, we used paper in files for the queue that he's talking about. Like I never knew what was going on. I would go in the file and pull out, I was like, okay, like a fall festival, package that. There was a 4-year-old's birthday party, package that if you want. Like, in a bigger market, you have to keep a queue of probably 100 story ideas. And so you might not see that in your first market, but it's really important to be on Facebook and things like that so you can see what's happening in your community in different neighborhoods. And yeah, Jeff has a really important job, or else sometimes we don't have story ideas and it's the queue that saves us.
Like Brenna said, though, it's social media is a huge part of the way we gather stories nowadays too. Twitter, Facebook, it's a huge part of where we get a lot of our story ideas each day. And in fact, some of the stuff that gets pitched in our editorial meetings comes from ideas that a reporter or an assignment desk person or even producers get from what they've seen on social media. So that, I would say, is one of the biggest changes for me personally since I got in the business. This was because I got in before there were smartphones and social media and all of that. So everything was, came to us via the fax machine or phone calls and eventually emails. But now with social media being introduced to the mix, there's just this much bigger pool of resources to get story ideas from today.
Yeah, I'm sure Joe can speak to this too, but like Instagram, my timeline is full of story ideas. He probably finds a lot of his feature stories from a new brewery opening up on social media. I'm in like every Facebook group you could possibly think of, like local COVID-19 survivors and, local fitness enthusiasts, like, because anything and everything can be a story and localized in your community. And next door, all these are so important to be a part of.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like Brenna was saying, I get a ton of stuff on social media, and I get DM'd now like all the time. I've opened up the DMs, so I get a lot of direct messages with people pitching me stuff and so on and so forth. I tell them to email me because I like to have it all in one place so I can pick and choose. But yeah, there's no question that's we cast a wider net now with all these different channels. We can get information and ideas.
Yeah, it's funny how it's changed there a little bit. I mean, I know that when I first began, I think MySpace was still a thing, and I remember being called into a news director's office and saying, "You got to get off that," right? And we didn't have video on the web. Totally changed from a sports landscape where I'm totally thinking social first, internet first, web first before it ever makes air. Either that be raw sound, reaction, instant analysis, whatever the case may be. And that's a total shift in the last 8 years, that kind of TV is really secondary. And I think that goes for a lot of people too. Like if you have the time to do it, and you kind of have to think that way and go one way, and then, okay, we'll get to TV later. Kind of the greatest hits of what I just put on Twitter for the last 3 hours is going to be turned into a TV piece.
Brian, you were talking about, and you may have wanted to jump in about how social media and I think Joe mentioned the DMs, whatever that means. As an old person, sorry.
You don't have people sliding into your DMs there, Marv?
I heard a lyric in Lizzo's song, and that's the only reason I would know what that was, I think.
Hey, I would say Brenna's hot tip there, you guys, if you're reporting in a small market, and I know like not a lot of big news happens in some small market like Bend. I think the 2 years that I was there were only like two murders. I remember them very well. But anyway, there's not a lot of big news that happens in some of these smaller markets. So having being a part of all those Facebook groups, that is a huge easy way to start, getting story ideas that other people are not going to have.
I have to say too, small markets do have news if you go and find it. I hope Ben Shores is listening to this, because I think he's the professor that said Pullman does have news. You have to go find it. And I went.
You have to find it. Yes. I mean obvious news, right?
Yeah, like murders and crime.
Yes.
And I went and found it, and I got a student Emmy for it. So I promise there is news in Pullman and Moscow and the surrounding areas.
Well, Brenna, someone's asking, well, how do you do a story then that doesn't necessarily align with your beliefs or thoughts?
Well, I think it's easy for me because I grew up knowing I wanted to be a journalist, not a super age, but from an old enough age of social media and stuff that I knew that what I put on social media was likely going to be seen by other people. And I've never been a super political person, and that really helps me in my career. It is ingrained in me to be unbiased, like we should. And so there are other people who are extremely political, and it helps them dive really deep on investigative stories and things like that. So I probably wouldn't be the best person to speak to that. And I am pretty strictly general assignment reporting. I don't do a lot of political stuff. We actually don't have specific reporters on beats, such as a political reporter. We all kind of share the wealth in that way. But it is ingrained in me to just go with the flow and look at both sides and interview everyone. At a protest, I might not believe with them smashing windows and vandalizing, but I am still trying to get a soundbite from someone there because I want to know why they are doing what they're doing, and that is important.
If I can say something, I'm a feature reporter now, but my first job actually when I was in Yakima, I did have a beat, and it was government/politics. Covered the 2000 election, interviewed presidential candidates, and so on and so forth. And how do you tell a story that does not align with your point of view? Well, is it true? If it's true, tell people. If it's not, tell people. I mean, you challenge people, but it really should. It just shouldn't matter if it aligns with your point of view or not. If it's the truth, you tell it. If someone's not telling the truth, you call them out. I mean, it's pretty simple, in my opinion.
And I think, like Brenna was saying, I want to know why they're doing what they're doing. It's just important as a journalist in general to always have that sort of curiosity about you. So even if you totally would not do that yourself, don't agree with what they're doing, you want to learn more about it. Why are you doing that? What started it? Ask all those questions. Just have an innate curiosity about everything.
Claire, I want to continue with you. We talked about this a little bit earlier before we came on. The early morning shift and making decisions and writing coherent news in that manner. Yeah. How was that coming out of college and facing that?
Yeah, it's rough. I was lucky, so I don't necessarily work that early morning shift. Our assignment desk starts at 3 a.m. And so we have someone else that does that shift, but I've covered it before. And when I'm covering it, I'm also usually coming off our night shift. So my normal shift, I end at almost midnight. So that's what my brain is used to. And so when I'm covering those 3 a.m. shifts, you are struggling to stay awake for sure. Coffee, smack yourself around a little bit, you'll get there. But just trying to focus on something, have a to-do list of what you need to do. Look at each of those things to make sure you're not forgetting anything, checking it off. I am lucky enough that I don't have to be writing stories early enough in the morning. I'm not really a producer or reporter, but I'm still trying to keep track of the news and what's going on. Also at 3 a.m., there's not usually a whole lot of breaking news, so it's easy to sort of stay on task and just focus on what you need to do and try to get through that.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that shift for 15 years now. Brian's done some of it as well. And you just need a routine. It takes a while to get there. It might take a couple months. It might take a year. Eventually you get to the point where you're used to it. I'm in it. I'm up at 3. My wife is a morning anchor, by the way, for the CBS affiliate, and she's got to do her hair and makeup. She's up at 2. So I can't even complain to her that I'm tired because she's up an hour before I am. But you just find a routine and you make it work. And quite honestly, the idea of going to a 9 to 6 shift or something like that is not terribly appealing to me right now. There's just not a lot of late nights, but you get used to that.
And you find you make it work for your lifestyle, and don't let that scare you off as far as the shifts go, because all that stuff changes too throughout your career. I mean, I think it's pretty rare for somebody like Joe to be working in the same shift, for that long of a period of time. But I started here doing mornings for 6 years and then moved to night side, and now I'm day side. So it's you figure it out. Like Joe said, if you get in a good routine, and I would say sleep is probably the most important thing. If you can find a way to fall asleep at the right time, then you're halfway there. And yeah, there are benefits to every shift. For Joe's shift, he's done what at 10 or 11 o'clock, and then the whole day to enjoy until you have to go to sleep, maybe a little bit early. But
I'm out of there by noon. The kids get out of school. Well, normally the kids get out of school at 3. I got 3 hours all to myself. It's fantastic.
Yep. And if you work night side, you have the whole day up until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you have to come into work until almost midnight. But you could sleep in every day. And if you work day side, then you're more of like just kind of almost a normal 9 to 5 style shift. So there's benefits to all the different shifts. Don't let that part scare you off, because you do find a way to make it work, and you find kind of the joy in everything. And I would say one of the best parts of this job as a journalist and everything, there will always be stories that maybe you're working on days in advance. And if you have a job like Joe's, you'll be scheduling things out days in advance. But this is one of those very few jobs that you can come, you do your thing, and you go home, and you can kind of leave it at the door, because you don't know what the next day is going to bring. And that's one of the cool parts of the job.
Brenna, how did you develop your sources when you first started out as a rookie reporter out there? You left Pullman, Washington to Temecula, California, and you went all the way to the east side of the United States to say, Portland, Maine, that's a great place to start. I mean,
yeah, not even Portland, Bangor, Marv.
Bangor.
2 hours north of Portland. Yeah, I was in the middle of nowhere, close to Canada. I had to go to Canada for some stories, actually, just right on the border where you lose cell service. But I developed those connections because I like to talk to people and meet new people. And at every single story scene or story, you get their phone numbers, and you keep them in a little file if you get their cards, and you write, maybe like keep a file of the story you did with them. And coming away every day from a story, I tried to think of 2 stories I could do the next time, or I could pitch with these people, or just otherwise ask them what's going on in the community. If it's not a public official, what else is happening in your neighborhood? Let me know. Here's my number. I passed out my cards like candy. And that is kind of a smart thing to do in a small market. You probably don't want everyone having your number in like a bigger city, especially right now. But you just talk to people and call them up and ask them for their personal cell phones. If they're a police chief of a small town, they'll probably give it to you. And just call them, once a week and see what's going on. It's really important. You have to just make those cold calls. I know that, when we're younger, we hated making doctor's appointments for ourselves when we were like 15 years old. You have to grow to like to call people that are like cold calling situations. That is our job every day. I'm probably cold calling like 5 or 10 people, and sometimes they're really difficult calls, like families of people who have just, passed away. So you have to get used to that, and just find your rhythm with people, and don't be fake.
Nick, there are so many students that want to go into sports broadcasting because it's, like the rock star of news.
Nick is our rock star.
right next to Brian McMillan's weather as lead guitarist. How would you tell the students to best prepare for your kind of job?
Well, when you guys were all talking about how you can kind of leave it at the door, I haven't had a weekend off. I've worked weekends from 2004 to now. And if I'm going to continue to do sports, which is what I love to do, I'm never not going to work weekends, because that's when all the fun stuff happens, right? And that's when especially in football season. I haven't been back to Pullman since I graduated, and that's such a depressing thought. I was going to go last year for the symposium, and then it didn't happen. But I would love to go to football, but I can't, because we got Duck and Beaver football, or covering Seahawks on Sundays. And so you got to really be dedicated. And now that I have a wife and kids, they don't have school and work on the weekends, and I get a few hours and then like, okay, peace out, I'm going to work. So you've really got to be dedicated to that fact. And I think sports maybe more so than reporter beats or producers that have a pretty set schedule. It's all over the map. Your days of the week off changes frequently at the spur of the moment, really, when things happen. So you kind of got to go as the games are played and all that kind of stuff. So you better be ready to be flexible. And if you're doing sports, you're not going to have weekends off.
Joe, you kind of talked about work-life balance a little bit, and how do you deal with that on an everyday basis?
Well, this is why I'm actually an advocate for, like a lot of people say, the morning shift. Ew. If you're a family guy, now if you're a young person in your 20s and maybe you're single, I can get why going to work at 3 a.m. may not be the most appealing thing in the world. When I first started, I was nightside. When I worked in San Antonio, I was on a late night show. So I would, I didn't have to get to work till like 1 p.m. Now for me, it's kind of great. I get up, I do my thing, I go to work, I get to have dinner with my kids every night, which, I mean, there's so many people that don't get to say that. So I'm really fortunate. That's why I'm a big advocate for what it is. I'm an odd bird in that I'm not at the mercy of breaking news most times. I mean, when it snows, we're all all hands on deck. Then I'm out there in the white stuff like everybody else, and then that sort of thing. But generally speaking, we've been able, and having a wife, very blessed to have a wife who's in the business as well, who I don't have to explain if I do need to work late or if she needs to work late. We understand, we speak the same language. So that helps as well. Can I say something? I want to say something about Nick Krupke and pat him on the back a little bit, because he was talking about, his schedule and working weekends. A few years ago, I guess maybe 2 years ago, Nick was having some surgery. And so I filled in for him on a trip. The women Ducks were in the Final Four. So I went with Nick's photographer to cover it. And the schedule, like a lot of people think, oh man, you're going to cover this major sporting event. How fun. And from the time we got off the plane, it was work, get on the plane, go home. And maybe a meal somewhere in between that. So like, just to piggyback on what he said, and again, it's the same as my job as well. What you see on TV is about 10% of it. There's so much more behind it. And there's sacrifices that, like Nick makes, like that we all make to do these jobs that we love.
Yeah, those trips, while they're super fun to do, but then you do like the 11 o'clock, 11:30 turn, and you're on East Coast time anyway, and then you're in the morning show because you're there and they spent the money to get you there to Florida or wherever the case may be, and you're going to be on 24 hours a day pretty much, on top of collecting all your content and turning 2 stories a day or whatever. Traveling's great, but it ain't what it all cracked up to be, for sure.
A couple years ago, I mean, this was like a dream come true. I got to cover the opening of the new Star Wars land at Disneyland. I mean, how amazing, right? I mean, Harrison Ford was there and all that stuff, but had to shoot stuff all day long, packages, boom, 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 live shots through the 11 p.m. show, and then back up to do live shots at 5 a.m. So I'm on about like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. So, and then as soon as we're done with that, shuttle to the airport to go home. So it's awesome, but fun, yes. Glamorous, maybe not.
That's the perfect way to say it. I think we get to do some really cool stuff in this business, and we get to be a part of some incredible things. And it is work, though. It's not glamorous all the time, or maybe not most of the time, but it's an awesome job. I mean, I still have, I don't know about you guys, but even though things have kind of changed over the years, it's still fun, and I still like coming to work every day. It's a great job.
And I will say weekends aren't so bad with news. It's slow and you're the only reporter likely. And so if you're new to the business, you get all the big stories. And I remember that being a big perk when I started, because gosh, I have to work the weekends, but I did get all those big stories because I was the only reporter on Saturday or Sunday. And when they happened, I was it. So it's slower, and you always have your manager on call who you can call, but it's just a lot more relaxed in the newsroom. And so take advantage of any schedule you're offered.
And then just piggybacking. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay. I just say that the real key is be persistent and resilient. And, I mean, at this point now, where people that I went to school with that have completely gotten out of it because they were burned out of the grind and they weren't satisfied anymore, or they decided that they wanted more family time, totally fine. But if this is truly what you want to do, you're going to have to sacrifice some of your own personal time to make it work. But it will pay off for you if you stick with it, and if that is truly what you want to do. Like I say, you may not have weekends off for the rest of your career, but you're super happy with your career.
And then just piggybacking off of what Brenna said earlier about, making those cold calls and whatnot, sources and connections are key to being successful in our business, for sure. Massage those relationships that you make with PIOs. Don't make them feel as if it's their duty or their job to provide you with information. Make it feel as if it's a partnership of sorts, to where, you're helping them inform the community about something important that's going on, and they're helping you get those details that you need in order to inform the community. And it's a very symbiotic relationship that you have. Maybe go to coffee with a PIO on occasion, but building those relationships and making them a source makes them feel more comfortable getting in contact with you for a story that they may not be comfortable going to other stations about. And then you get things like exclusives. So it's just, for me, over the last 20 some years, it's just been really important to have those connections with PIOs and other sources in the business.
You know what, many students are going to be graduating in just a few weeks, and they passed their 455 midterm, which I think they're all very excited about. See, Claire, they still have to take it too. But if thinking back to when you just graduated, Brian, which was just, I don't know, a couple years ago, what do you wish you put on your resume reel that you could tell the students now, so that you would stand out in the crowd and say, this is me, different from Brenna Kelly?
Oh, that's a great question. How could I be different than Brenna?
Did you have 10-part stand-ups on your reel, Brian?
Yeah,
I mean, that is like way overrated. I'll just say that.
I think I think active stand-ups are great. You know, it has to feel natural. It has to be natural, but having someone help shoot your stand-ups for you, if you can do that and show and be active with it, news directors love that stuff. And I would say also just the ability to have different kinds of things on your reel. Like, I can do sports, I can do news, I can do reporting, I can do weather. I had just a little tiny bit of weather on my reel, just like one little segment. I didn't even think it was that good, but I put it on there anyway. And then I got hired for a weather job. And now, you know, almost 15 years later, I'm still doing it. So I think showing versatility and showing that you can be demonstrative, meaning, you know, active live shots, and that will help you stand out, as opposed to just standing in front of something, a wall or something like that, doing a stand-up.
And if you're going, I don't have anything to put on my reel, I want to be an MMJ, but I don't, like, there's no breaking news happening, I'm not getting enough airtime in class, just go out and have one of your buddies take an iPhone and shoot you. I mean, Marvin literally shot one of my stand-ups on my reel, and I had others from internships. But if you're saying, I don't have enough, or I messed up in that, always put your best foot forward. Just because you shot it with a professional photographer at a KHQ, if you're interning and you mess up, don't put that one on. Just go shoot another one, and just go outside your door and find something happening. And it really, iPhones can do a lot these days. Just make sure your audio is crisp.
Nick, what about yours? I mean, sports reel, how do they do a good one for their boss?
I think just be real. I mean, I do see every once in a while, I mean, it's just me and my photographer. There's nobody else in the sports department, but I do often get random emails from people, hey, check out my reel, from Cougs, and some from people that are just looking for jobs that we don't have to offer. And right away you can tell, like, well, that's, I mean, I probably had them too, like the kind of the cringe-worthy, like, that's not comfortable looking at all, right? So my biggest thing is just be yourself, right? And read like you're not reading. You know what I mean? Talk like a normal person would talk. That's my thing, and just keep it moving. And I think for anybody that's in this chat for sports, anybody can read a set of highlights and sound hokey and whatnot. Nobody wants that anymore. I mean, that's been what's really been beaten into me here. They don't want me doing highlights of the game. People have already seen it, right? And they're turning to you for something else. So you got to have a hook, something unique, different. Maybe it's a different question, a different approach, a different angle, just a different story to tell. So I would just kind of beg the highlight stuff, like the Dan Patrick stuff in the 90s. It's not really needed for anybody anymore.
Jeff, you hire the recent grad, well, maybe not just recent grads, but what are you looking for when you look at that reel and you give them 12 seconds of your day?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, piggybacking off what Nick said, you know, absolutely authenticity. I mean, that's probably the biggest part of it for us. You know, we don't want somebody who is regurgitating something or making it sound as if it's forced. So definitely authenticity if it's an on-air position. If it's behind the scenes, such as the assignment desk, we're just looking for somebody who has a lot of drive and ambition, that's a go-getter, somebody who isn't satisfied with maybe the original answer they get, that they want to dig a little further. Like Claire said, she is awesome about that. We love having her on the assignment desk because of that tenacity. But somebody who just, who isn't willing to stand by and let the first answer necessarily be the one that guides them. If they're like, ah, that doesn't sound quite right, I think we need to dig a little further here. And then they go and drive for that. And then we end up getting the better story because of it. So I would say, you know, tenacity and drive are the two biggest things for behind the scenes. And then in front of the camera, just authenticity for sure.
Joe, any good words for that feature reel?
Well, Marvin, I will say this, you know, when I first got into the business, so we'll see. I think Clinton was still president. Damn it, that's true. Clinton was president. Okay. I had a couple very well-meaning people offer me some tips on my presentation. I put together a tape, I sent it to one person in Portland. And they had, you know, some tips of do it this way, do it that way. But if I had done it this way or that way, I wouldn't have been myself still. Not that I couldn't like tweak my performance and maybe talk a little slower or clearer. There's certainly things we can all work on, but I wasn't going to try to be someone else. And I will point out, these two well-meaning people who offered me tips on how to tweak my performance, they're no longer in television news than I am. So just be yourself. And I will say, everyone on this panel, I know them all. And as you can see, the people that you're seeing in this panel are the exact same people you see on TV. There's no difference between seeing Nip Krupke right now or Brian McMillan or Brenna and the person that you talk to in person and the person you see on TV. So authenticity is definitely the word of the day.
Well, great. I just want to thank everyone on this panel for sharing their thoughts and expertise. I know you all are doing so very well in the Portland market. I want you to stay safe and be healthy over there. I know that sometimes you're put into positions there where your back is turned to the action, and I sometimes get worried for you all, but I'm so glad that you are doing such great work in the industry, and I look forward to seeing more of what you do. And hope you stay on and let me know what you're doing. And go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Cougs.
Go Cougs!